And so I'm just revealing to you here on air that I was recruited by patriot elements inside the shadow government to take on a communist Chinese funding operation. It's not Russian.
You know what? The public deserves to hear this and to get it straight. Now, how did you get Donald Trump on your show 3 times prior to the election? How did you pull that off?
All right. I never tell this on my own show, and this will probably end up being news tomorrow, but you deserve it. I know folks that are part of Delta Force, and I know people that are part of covert action in the Defense Department and the CIA. And quite frankly, they've given me authorization to talk about this. I have never been in the CIA. I have never been part of covert operations, but separately, I've had family. I've had family that got like 7 silver stars and stuff like that, but it's all classified. Some of the highest decorated people in the country. I'm very proud of those people. They're a lot more manly than I am, and most of them are dead. But people involved in regime changes, you name it, right here in Texas fighting hard for the Republic. And I was basically contacted by groups inside the Special Forces operations in Florida, inside breakaway groups inside the Central Intelligence Agency, and groups basically behind American industry that wanted to defeat the globalists, and they're planning to bankrupt America. And so they told me that they were advising Trump on the globalist takeover, and that they understood from their demographics and their studies that we actually had conservatively 15 million people a week visiting Infowars.com and tens of millions watching our videos, and that they had briefed the president, or now then candidate Trump, and that they wanted to attempt a counter coup against the globalists. And so I'm just revealing to you here on air that I was recruited by patriot elements inside the shadow government to take on a communist Chinese funding operation. It's not Russian. And I was contacted because people in the hit teams in the government were actually being given dossiers and training on people they were going to kill. And George, I don't make stuff up. Let's just say this, the entire echelon of patriots, particularly you, the second biggest show in the country, your name was not listed, but it was listed as just anyone who had influence, even if they were a liberal, was to be wiped out because I can't believe I'm even telling this right now. I'm just going to go all the way right now. And the situation in Syria and Egypt and our friends in Israel. You say people want to demonize Israel all day. It's because the real folks that are in Israel, the real people, understand what it is to be persecuted and targeted. And Israel, with Benjamin Netanyahu, they're trying to remove from office right now. Again, I was never even a fan of Netanyahu. I wasn't his enemy. I just wasn't studying it. Have come to America's aid to defeat this, and this is what you're seeing right now. This is toe-to-toe battle with the globalists, and they were going to shut down free speech. They were going to probably kill me or arrest me, and I was shown all the data transmissions, all the information. I was shown WikiLeaks, all of it, before it was even, they're going to subpoena me. They're coming after me right now. So I'm just fighting for America. I'm 100% committed, and that's why they're coming after me. And
but this is what got Donald Trump to say, "I got to be on this guy's show."
Donald Trump was advised by the Special Forces Command out of Florida. They said
to go on your program.
That's who actually. Let's just say it, the enemy already knows all this. Let me just say this so everybody listening knows I'm telling the truth. Special Operations Command in Florida. The Delta Force, Army, Black Ops. Army's the oldest thing in America. It's before the Constitution, anything. They said, sir, you need to go with Alex Jones, and you need to rally the troops. And they briefed him. They showed him the documents, and they said, we need you to run. And this was a year before he came on with me, and he went to Scotland for 6 months and didn't want to do it. He knew they'd just come after him, his businesses, his family, and the Delta Force basically asked Trump. Delta Force, founded by General Boykin and Schumacher and people like Dr. C. Pachenik of Psychological Operations of the CIA. They basically delivered the message to Trump with all the dossiers and all the proof of what was happening. And he just said, "You're highly recommended." All I can say is we're going to be talking a lot more because he was being briefed by top generals. I'm not going to say the name on what we're doing. And it's not that I'm even special. I'm willing to say this. I'm willing to do this. I wasn't directed by anybody. I was just aware of the operations. I was studying it, as you know. You're a Navy guy yourself. And we just did what we had to do. We did a counter coup against them, and the economy's roaring back. Most people are behind us. I'd say 90% of the CIA, Defense Intelligence, military, special ops is behind us.
Amazing story, Alex. You just get him to stop tweeting as much as he does.
They say that, George. You're getting the absolute data dump right now. They say don't do all that. They don't want him communicating. Sure, some of his tweets aren't perfect, but they want to shut him down. They want to jag him so that he can't get the information out to the people. I mean, do you understand? On your show right now, I am telling people, because I know it's 10 times bigger than mine, when it comes to actual human people on the ground, I am telling you all this information. This is real. This is happening, okay? What I'm telling you is what is going on and what is happening, and Trump is literally with a breakaway group in our government trying to turn the economy back on, trying to save the society, and fighting as hard as he can.
Hold on, Alex. We're going to take a break. Alex Jones with us in an undisclosed location.
Is because that was the ignition for this movement, right? If you were paying attention to it the entire time like I have been since 2015, since everybody was supporting Cruz and then all of a sudden they all flipped and started supporting Trump, you would recognize that Infowars was the primer that launched this movement into motion. Phase 2 of his job, of his mission, if you will be spinning this information that follows into a good thing when it is obviously a bad thing. And the ultimate irony of this situation here is that Jones warned of this future martial law situation, right? He warned of that the entire time, and he will be part of it, ushering it in, making you think that it's a good thing, playing that Judas Goat role. Infowars is a military intelligence operation. It is a great propaganda operation. It's the new Voice of America information warfare operation. It's a more sophisticated version of the Voice of America.
You know, we've got a lot of folks work here at the office that were in the military, and some of them were, involved in not just your standard special operations stuff, but some of the most elite groups out there. And
the tactics that Jones uses to keep you within this John Birch Society paradigm. His main two tactics, information warfare, an army idea, an idea coming out of a lieutenant colonel in the army, and political warfare. Now he's operating in peacetime political warfare. Great propaganda. Now we're moving on into these executive orders that Trump has signed, which document what the long-range plan of this presidency really is. So let me start by playing this clip from February 22nd, 2018, which I believe they chose that date specifically because it's George Washington's birthday, but it's also my birthday. And I think they really think that, Jerome Corsi, photoed here with Nelson Rockefeller. Now, I've talked about Nelson Rockefeller. He's one of these main guys, one of these main financiers in the CNP and JBS. Jerome Corsi is a Council for National Policy member. Now, I think these guys truly, people like these Jerome Corsi characters, I think they truly believe that they're waging a second American Revolution. But in reality, what they're doing is lining up for a central military control under martial law, at least for the time being, and ushering in a brave new world. And by the way, Elon Musk is your Ford.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons that I'm emphasizing and kind of trying to bring public the degree to which the military has been increasingly involved, not only in advising but protecting President Trump. People kind of realize with this executive order that Donald Trump signed on December 21st, we are in a state of emergency. It's been declared. Now, it has not been made a big deal of. It was buried inside the executive order. You had to read it, where it came across and said, for these reasons, I hereby declare we are in a state of national emergency. That gives the president exceptional powers. It enables the president to begin activating the military, to begin taking exceptional powers, even convening military tribunals, having martial law declared if necessary.
And let's come back from breaking it into this, because this is such a big topic and it ties into COG and the plans to assassinate the president and all of it. This is not, people go, Alex, this is what you warned of. No. If the globalists might use this against us, we're now in a fight for the very country. We are in an emergency. This is what the president should be doing. We are in an emergency with these foreign globalists running rampant, engaged in crimes at every level. We have them. We are in an emergency. This is exactly what the president should be doing. Correct, Doctor?
Absolutely, 100%. And ultimately, Donald Trump knows that the end game here is that the charges that are going to be brought ultimately against Hillary and Barack Obama involve sedition and treason. And these are, Donald Trump has no intent of letting go of this until those two are brought to justice.
And he's confident and competent, because everything his dad taught him, everything he learned has now been echoed by the patriots and the government and the people, and he knows he's with us, lined up. As long as we stick with Trump, we're going over the top. We're going to crush the enemy. We'll be right back. Thank you, Alex Newman. More with Dr. Corsi straight ahead. Trump, and has been since he took the mission.
Well, and I want to explore one other part of this, and that is that since Trump signed that executive order, there's military intelligence has superiority over all the other forms of intelligence. It is the preeminent form of intelligence. There's a Supreme Court decision, Reynolds v. U.S. in the 50s, that established military intelligence has ascendancy and superiority, ability to rule the game over all the alphabet intelligence agencies, CIA, and all the rest of them. Now, since Trump signed that executive order, military intelligence is a group of military intelligence that works 100% of the time with NSA. So they're familiar with all of the domestic intelligence, and the military have determined that the end game here is going to involve military tribunals. You can't try Hillary or Obama or any of the top people in a civil court and make it available to a wider range of the American people who are not used to dealing with intelligence information. It needs to be decoded. It needs to be interpreted.
That's our mission, is take this complex info to the people to then mobilize them.
YouTube channel. What we're doing is we're trying to get the American people to understand that we are in a state of emergency. It's been declared by the president. The U.S. military is taking a larger exceptional role. I mean,
it's not arrogant. It's called survival, and I need you to get more.
So did you hear that? We've literally been in a state of emergency since December of last year. Now, I and others have pegged Donald Trump as a military intelligence operation before Jerome Corsi went out in public about it. Since then, he has been publicly talking about it. So has Jones. But before then, there was only one little clip of Jones. One time he mentioned it. But their spin is that it's all for the military tribunals, right? It's all for the greater good. No, absolutely not. This is for the U.S. Army to retain the power that it's lost. They want to get rid of the compartmentalization. They want to get rid of things like the DNI, etc., and retain the power that they had at the end of World War II. They want central control. They want to control it all. And we're on the fast track to seeing that. A brave new world. Now, people need to also recognize that this could be enacted from international conflict or domestic conflict. So it could happen. Something could happen domestically that would trigger him to enact this martial law, or something internationally. So what we see going on with Iran right now could literally trigger martial law in this country. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, if you thought that one was bad, just wait until we get into these new ones that he just signed this month of this year. Now, again, you're going to see this spun as a good thing by the Trump gray propaganda arms, the DOD gray propaganda out there. You're going to see them all agree that, oh, yes, this is good. If they don't think it's good, they'll spin it as Trump's trying his best, but it's the deep state directing him in the wrong direction. Some stupid shit like that. Okay, so let me get into these new executive orders, which are just lovely, absolutely lovely. So, according to a report from the Federal Services for Military Technical Cooperation, the National Security Council is a principal forum used by the President of the United States for consideration of the national security and foreign policy matters, but for whose power is directly threatened this past week when it is revealed that the, quote, deep state has created its own National Security Council. These coup plotters have named National Security Action that is being led by Ben Rhodes, who was a former deputy national security advisor for President Obama. Okay, so here's the spin. It's the old WWE, DOD, DOJ, WWE match. Well, it's actually more like a UFC match if you really want to get technical with it, because both sides are filled with real fighters. But your Dana White at the top, right? Your high level Dana White, the owner, owns both sides and is really operating, and he wins either way, which is exactly what we see going on with this DOD DOJ fight and these future military tribunals, if you will, which is almost very reminiscent of the Army McCarthy era, and whose contempt for a free press has voiced by stating his disgust for the entire U.S. media establishment by stating most of the outlets are reporting on world events from Washington. The average reporter we talk to is 27, and their only reporting experience consists of being around political campaigns. That's a sea of change. They literally know nothing. His brother, David Rhodes, being the president of CBS News, this report continues, Ben Rhodes is protected by the, quote, deep state media propaganda sycophants who are failing to tell the American people that these coup plotters are attempting to establish their own British-style shadow cabinet to usurp President Trump's power, in which it is warned Rhodes has herded the entire slew of top Obama national security officials. So due to this, quote, deep state plot, right, perfect excuse, perfect show, perfect theater act to usher in this brave new world, this central military control. Isn't it funny? They got all the conspiracy theory guys, all the anti-New World Order guys to usher it in. How great is that? So President Trump had at his disposal the use of a new U.S. law called the Military Justice Act of 2016, which authorized the most significant changes to the Uniform Code of the Military Justice since the Military Justice Act of '83, that President Obama never enacted into law, nor did President Trump, who missed his December 23rd, 2017 deadline for signing these new laws into enactment. Now remember, when Obama signed that and it was a big deal, and Obama was going to usher in the martial law, no sir, Trump has always been the pawn for this agenda. So once the deep state began their creation of an actual, quote-unquote, shadow government by creating their own National Security Council, the report continues, President Trump, on March 1st, 2018, signed a sweeping executive order fully enacting the Military Justice Act of 2016, and focuses entirely on massive changes to the Manual for Courts Martial United States. When the United States, having been at war 93% out of the 93% of its existence, 224 out of the 242 years of its existence since its founding in 1776, this report notes that the masses of American people today, unlike their ancestors, have no idea that nearly every one of them fall under the criminal provisions for the Manual for Courts Martial United States. And that begins with their selective service laws allowing civilians to be taken from their homes and forced into uniform, whether willing or not, and that the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled makes these civilian subjects to court-martial from the time they are supposed to report for induction, even if they never arrive. equally unknown to the masses of the American people. This report says it is nearly every single citizen between the ages of 17 and 44 years likewise fall under the criminal provisions for the Manual for Courts Martial United States under U.S. Code 10-311. They all constitute both the organized and unorganized militia, thus making them all, in essence, members of the U.S. military, whether they know it or not. Okay? You're all going to fight this war. To making every American citizen, regardless of age, subject to the criminal provisions of the Manual for Courts Martial United States. It's critical to note is a power vested in only Donald Trump, who in time of war, as the commander-in-chief, has the sole authority to determine what constitutes as a threat and what should be done about it. With the Supreme Court having also ruled that war is defined by the aggression of U.S. military forces in foreign countries and not necessarily declared by the Congress, and whose standard is met by the U.S. military, having nearly 800 military bases in more than 70 countries around the world. As to how President Trump will wield his unlimited powers against these, quote, deep state coup plotters, the report continues. His just signed sweeping executive orders, with the main emphasis being on authorizing the use of civilian employees experienced in the prosecution or defense of complex criminal cases to provide assistance to and consult with less experienced judge advocates throughout the entire Manual for Court-Martial United States process, thereby allowing U.S. military services to outsource a core competency of judge advocate communities, and whose only explanation for being needed would be the sudden and rapid rise in dissident American citizens entering into the court-martial process in the thousands, if not tens of thousands. With Abraham Lincoln being the last American war leader to arrest and put under U.S. military control for court-martial tens of thousands of civilian dissidents, the report continues, Trump's joking at dinner last night that China's, quote, President for Life plan is a great idea that can only happen in the U.S. someday. Dictator Trump, folks. When viewed in the light of his sweeping executive orders, should be understood with containing as much steel as it does mirth, especially with being known that he plans to enact these new laws January 1st, 2019, which is the date that a new U.S. Congress will be sworn in, and whom might contain the majority of the deep state coup plotting enemies, sworn to, quote, throw him out of office. Now, I think it's an interesting side note that Abraham Lincoln also got funding from the Russians during that time period. So essentially what we have going on here is Trump becoming a dictator. We see him signing in these executive orders that give him dictator status. Really, he's not in control. It's the military. It's always been the military, and the military will be calling the shots. So it's important to understand that we are literally on the brink of martial law, and nobody's talking about it. We're literally on the brink of complete military control. These military tribunals that the citizens are going to be wrapped up in. So to cap this video off, basically what these executive orders are saying is that in this state of emergency, when Trump enacts this state of emergency, when he puts everything into place and we're in martial law, it allows him to take over everything and dictate everything from a central military power. It allows him to take over the media. It allows him to do all kinds of things. It allows him to essentially own every citizen and do whatever he wants with it, whether that be put him in forced labor brigades, etc. So please please look out for this and spread this information, because we're at such a crucial time period in history where we're seeing all these things unfold right in front of us, and not very many of us are doing anything about it. Now, I don't know if there's others out there talking about this. I hope there is. Usually that's what happens. I'm unaware of them at this moment, but make your own videos. Spread this information. Dig into this stuff, guys. It's real. It's happening.
It's to slant it just a little bit to keep you over in this paradigm shift. Mainly it's the left-right paradigm, where we get people fighting each other. Now, there's always going to be hardcore commies.
That's exactly what all our sources from the FBI and the Pentagon, which means the CIA connected Pentagon, that's special operations, that's what they told us. And these are the good guys that continue to give us good info. It doesn't mean the whole thing's good. There's a civil war in America right now. One group wanted to totally sell out the communist Chinese. That's coming up in the next segment. The other group isn't out to rape America completely. So you're kind of stuck between that. But I go on a rant here. The point is that I'm glad that McBreen remembered this, because this is the truth. Trump is not in a secret society. He was so real, him and his dad played possum for decades while they were planning all this and waiting for the right time. And guess what? It happened. Again, his dad, I've confirmed from the highest levels, massive amounts of money to the John Birch Society in the 50s and 60s. Same thing with people like Donald Trump. And I've talked to the old guys that have been in the meetings just 2 days ago with Trump, 25 years ago, saying, I wish somebody'd run to stop this. I'd get behind him. He didn't even want to. When he says that, he doesn't need to do that to feel powerful. He was looking for somebody to back. They never showed up. Just like he says in speeches, they never came along. I've talked to people that were in the meetings 25 years ago when Trump was saying, who do we get to do this? So there's a real war going on in the elite right now. Don't think Trump just did this on his own. He was recruited by patriots and U.S. intelligence agencies, for a fact. Trump was recruited by the U.S. Army. That's a big secret, but you deserve to know what the Democrats already know. You deserve to understand what's really going on. We were being held underwater.
But they're not doing anything with the power that we know of. What they do have is tremendous wealth, like off the charts tremendous wealth at Apple, at Google. I mean, they just have tremendous amount of influence. And I think when you have that kind of money, like idealistic hippie left-wing dreamers are way better off like throwing that money around than like really gangster globalists that are, you know, pro-war, really enthusiastic about right-wing politics. Like that would be way scarier. If all that money, the billions of dollars, was in a Christianic cult that thought that the second coming was going to happen in Jerusalem, so it was very important to protect Israel, which is real.
I'm sure, I know Trump's already doing this, but when they're organizing violence and moving, and I can see they're moving with it behind the scenes, it's time for covert action, and it just has to happen. So if people kind of see Infowars as a bellwether where the people sit, I'm just saying, I think the president and the military has to do what it has to do at this point. I mean, it would be negligent to sit here at this point